so that way you have the PowerPoint. I think, Noha, we can post the PowerPoint after with the recording, right?
Yes, all the recordings will be on the website. So the same place, go to the College Success Workshop webpage. Under workshop materials, you will see all the workshops that have been happened and that will happen later. It will be uploaded in the website. So for you to refer to it anytime later.
So everyone can refer to the website. I currently have the chat box open on my screen as well. So if you have any questions, go ahead and either raise your hand or write in the chat box, and I will go ahead and answer as we go along. We can post a link to the website after the workshop. I can grab a link to it. But if you just type into Google DVC College Success Workshops, it'll pop up as well. But so we're all here for time management. So welcome to the Time Management College Success Workshop. I'm Professor Lopez. I teach at the Pleasant Hill and San Ramon campus. I'm also a graduate of DVC as well. So I attended DVC and got my AA in Psych and took a lot of history courses as well. If you have any questions at all, my email is nlopez@dvc.edu. So if you have any questions after the workshop, I'll take questions at the end, or you can also email me as well. Before we dive too deeply into time management, I just want to let everyone know the resources you have available to you, because part of time management is knowing what you have at your disposal. So if you want any of these direct links, you can also go ahead and email me as well. But there's the student guide, transition to remote instruction. There is the tech student loan request form. So if you don't have a computer, for instance, there is a request form that you can fill out. The COVID-19 emergency grant, online tutoring, academic support center, DVC and community resources during uncertain times. We have wellness groups on campus, free food resources. We have the DVC grocery bag and food box distribution. And then there's weekly success tip emails that come out every week. So part of time management is knowing what resources you have available, because if we're talking about studying, you should be well fed. If you're going to study, that helps you retain information better. So then knowing about the free food resources or grocery bag and food box distributions is really important. So you have all these resources available to you. Like I mentioned, if you want any of the direct links, you can go ahead and just email me and I can send you the direct link. So getting into time management. So what is time management? Time management refers to managing time effectively so that the right time is allocated to the right activity. So you see in this illustration, this individual has a to-do list, they have their computer, they have a nice bulletin board that says finish project Friday. They set time limits and for their tasks, and they're organized as well. So these are all part of time management. We want to make sure that we have some type of list or some type of way to keep ourselves accountable on how long we spend on a particular task, and also making sure that we spend the right amount of time on a task. Studying, or let's say even, making a list of things you have to do for the day, that could take 10 minutes. It could take an hour if you keep getting distracted by your phone or your computer, or maybe you're watching Netflix while you're doing it. So part of time management is really keeping on track and making sure that you're spending the right amount of time for the task. So why do we need to time manage? So one is to save time. Like I mentioned, if we get distracted, we usually end up spending a lot more time on tasks than we originally anticipated. Reducing stress is also important. So all of us live, very stressful lives. And so it's important to reduce stress by managing our time effectively. Function effectively, increase our work output. If we stay on track and we minimize our distractions, we end up actually getting more done. And then finally, to have more control over our responsibilities. So there are things that we have control over, there are things that we don't have control over, but having control over the things that we do is really important, and time management is part of that. You control whether or not you spend 10 minutes studying, whether or not you spend 50 minutes studying, or whether or not you get distracted. And so it's important to pay attention to those things. How to use time effectively. So effective planning, for one, whether that's a to-do list, you have a weekly schedule, you have a calendar that you fill things in, but you want to make sure to plan effectively. Setting goals and objectives. So make sure that you have goals, either weekly goals or daily goals, but just make sure that you don't have too many. A 4-page to-do list isn't necessarily the most beneficial for one day. Instead, it's more beneficial to have like 5 to 6 items that you can get done. So making sure that you don't exert yourself or over plan for what you can really get done in a day. We only have 24 hours in a day. 7 to 8 hours of those should be sleeping, and we'll talk about sleep, but 7 to 8 hours should be sleeping, and we only have 24 hours. We don't have any more. Setting deadlines is really important. There is a really good TED Talk called A Master Procrastinator by Tim Urban. Talks about deadlines and talks about that there are some things where if there's not a deadline set, we're more likely to procrastinate than things that do have deadlines. So for instance, a homework assignment has a deadline of Friday. Maybe we don't procrastinate, but something like getting, something done for your house that doesn't have a deadline, we're more likely to procrastinate. So Master Procrastinator by Tim Urban, and I can put that in the chat box, but that's a really good TED Talk that talks about procrastination. Delegation of responsibilities. You can delegate your responsibilities. You don't have to do everything yourself. And sometimes it's really important to delegate responsibilities, especially if you have a lot on your plate or if you have people surrounding you that can help you with those responsibilities. Prioritizing activities as per their importance. So is a essay that I have due on Friday more important than a test that I have on Sunday? So that's kind of something that you need to prioritize. And then spending the right time on the right activity. Like I mentioned, getting distracted, it easily happens, but that also makes us spend a lot more time on an activity than we would have originally allocated for. So I could, for instance, be trying to study and then get distracted by my phone for 15, 20 minutes. And now that time I was supposed to be studying, I've now been distracted for 15 to 20 minutes. So it's important to spend the right time on the right activity. So time management tips. So these are some tips that you can follow for time management. So record your current schedule. So figure out how you're currently using your time and what to improve. So just kind of record yourself on, I spent 30 minutes scrolling through Instagram, or I spent 30 minutes watching television, or however much time, but record your current schedule. Batch similar tasks. So cut down on the time you waste transitioning between tasks by doing similar things at the same time, like replying to emails. When I reply to emails, I sit down and I reply to all of my email accounts. I have 4 of them and I reply to all of them all at one time. So I batch those tasks together. Ignore phone calls and emails. So unless it's an emergency, leave your replies for later. Don't let yourself be needlessly interrupted. So if you've decided that you want to study, go ahead and put your phone on silent and put it to the side until you're done studying. A lot of times you can set a timer for yourself, and when the timer goes off, then you can check your phone. There are also like extensions that you can put on Chrome when you're working on homework online that actually block out other websites for a period of time. So when I was a college student, I used to use that as well, so that I wouldn't go on Tumblr. So those are some ways that you can kind of keep yourself from getting distracted. At the start of the day, plan out your to-do list for the day or your schedule for the day for 30 minutes. So when you wake up in the morning, kind of make a plan of what you want to do today and what your schedule looks like. Again, a 4-page to-do list is not beneficial for every single day, but have a couple of tasks on there that you need to get done. Also, another note about studying, if you study for 3 to 4 hours in your room or in whatever space you're studying, that's not necessarily always the most beneficial for learning and will actually lead to increased distraction. So really, we should be studying for about 30 to 45 minutes and then taking a 15-minute break and then going back to studying. So make sure that you're taking breaks throughout the day. It's actually a cost saver or a time saver to take breaks versus getting distracted. Using your waiting time effectively. So when you're doing things like riding public transportation, which some of us may be doing right now, some of us may not be doing, just depending on our lifestyles, or sitting in a waiting room, use that time productively. Check your emails, maybe answer that quick question someone had. Minimize meeting time. So for those of you who may have meetings with other people, making sure that work gets done and making sure that there's no distractions in meetings. Delegate some work. So if you have the ability to delegate, then using that. Turning tasks into habits. So make things easier by turning work tasks into a regular routine. And that just comes with time. And then block out social media. So reduce distractions, don't open up social media until your work is done. So again, I mentioned that there is an extension on Chrome where you can block out certain websites for a period of time, or just turn your phone on silent or put your phone on the other side of the room. And then that way you'll be distracted less. So those are just some time management tips that you can use in your everyday life. So what should you really be doing? So we're talking about time management. You're taking this, you're listening to this college success workshop, which is awesome because you want to learn more about time management and how to implement these skills into your daily life. So some of the key things to do are, one, listing your goals is really important so you know what you're working towards. And goals can be listed as monthly goals, weekly goals. You can list semester goals, any type of goals like that. Make a daily to-do list. Again, not a 4-page one, but with about 5 to 6 items. Prioritize your to-do list. So what things do you really need to get done today and what things can wait until tomorrow? And then also making a weekly schedule. So all of these are really great ways to start to work on your time management. And there's a couple of ways that you can do them. This semester, I am just using a notebook to write down everything. That has been what I've been using, but you can also get a planner. And this planner that I have has not only the month set out and then to-do list space over here, but in addition to that, it's also got every week and then another to-do list. So you could get one like this as well, or you could just use Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar. So both of those are options as well, where you can have to-do lists and make a weekly schedule. So both of those work, and your Outlook calendar even reminds you about meetings 15 minutes in advance, or you can set a special time. So I got a reminder 15 minutes before this meeting that I had a meeting. Even though I already had remembered, it's still a nice reminder. So you can use different avenues. There's also something called Evernote, where you can take notes and make to-do lists, or OneNote, which is a Microsoft Office application, and you all have access to Microsoft Office through your DVC email account. So if you haven't downloaded that yet or didn't know you had access, you do have access and you can download it from your email. SMART goals. So when we're making goals, we want to make SMART goals. And SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant, timely, or tangible. So when we're talking about SMART goals, so specific, what is the goal? I want to cut the 6 hours I spend processing data in Excel every day to 3 hours by implementing an improved work routine. This is a specific goal. I specifically want to cut 3 hours. Measurable. How will I measure my progress? I'll track the time I spend processing each day and watch as the time decreases. So day 1, you spend 6 hours. Day 2, you spend 5.5. Day 3, you spend 5 until you get to 3. Attainable. So do I have the skills or the resources for it? I have access to Excel ebooks that will help me learn how to be efficient. Relevant. Why is this goal important? I spend 6 hours processing data in Excel and that's too much time. And time bound. When will I achieve the goal I've set? I want to cut the time I spend on Excel calculations in half by the 15th of the next month. So when we're thinking about goals, we should ask ourselves, is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it relevant? And is it time bound? All of these things are really important when we're setting goals. So prioritizing, so making a to-do list. So let's say I have a paper due on Friday and I have an exam that is going to be due on Sunday. Write in the chat box which assignment you think I should be prioritizing. So which one do you think I should be prioritizing? The one due on Friday or the one due on Sunday? Okay. So a lot of people said Friday. So yeah, When I'm making my to-do list, I am going to put that I have an assignment due on Friday and an assignment due on Sunday. My highest priority that should be completed first should be my Friday assignment. And then after that, I'll work on my Sunday assignment. Another way you can also prioritize is what is easiest and what is hardest. So for instance, some people, they write a to-do list and they want to get all the easiest tasks done. Some people want to get all the hardest tasks done first. And some people like to do one easy task and then one hard task. In the chat box, write down whether or not you prefer doing the easiest tasks first, the hardest tasks, or if you want to do one hard task and one easy task. I like to do a hard task and then an easy task and go in that type of formation. I also saw somebody had their hand raised. So if you want to take yourself off mute, you can ask your question. Somebody have a hand raised? Yeah, so I like to do hard tasks first, and then I like to do easy, and I like to alternate them. But some people, it just really is what works best for you. And you might find that one works better over the other. So it's really finding out about which one works the best for you. So scheduling, making a realistic estimate of how much you can do, plan to make the best use of the available time, minimize stress by avoiding overcommitment by yourself and others. So this is a 15-minute day planner. You don't need to use a 15-minute day planner, but you can if you want. So you can fill in everything that you do during the day. Again, about 7 to 8 hours of that should be sleep. But you want to go ahead and fill in what you do during the day and how much you spend. So a realistic estimate, let's say for me, is I like to take my dogs on walks. A realistic estimate of taking my dog on a walk is about an hour. If I schedule 3 hours, that's too long. If I schedule 15 minutes, that's too short. So an hour is about what I like to do when I walk him. So you want to make sure that you're making realistic estimates. You want to plan, the best available time, and then don't commit yourself too much. So a lot of times we say yes to too many things. It's okay to say no to some things because when we overcommit ourselves, that increases our stress load as well. So time management is a key to success. It helps you control your time and also establish good study habits. So on this 15-minute planner, if I'm putting in whenever I'm studying for my courses, that's also going to help me turn that studying into a habit. So I'm going to have good study skills. Examine your motivation and your goals. If you keep putting off a task, you might want to ask yourself, are you still committed to whatever that is? So for instance, if you volunteer somewhere in the pandemic right now, we're not doing as much volunteering, but let's say pre-pandemic, I was volunteering somewhere and every week I was supposed to do a volunteer shift and I kept pushing it to the bottom of my to-do list. After a little while, I might ask myself, am I still really committed to this? Do I still really want to volunteer, or should I take that off my plate because I haven't been giving it the attention that it needs? So asking yourself, are you still committed to these things, and re-examining your motivations and your goals is also really helpful. So time management is also the importance of training ourselves and developing good habits. So if we have a habit every week that we are going to walk on, Fridays with your friend for an hour, and you write that down every single day, or you're going to study for an hour and a half at this time, eventually that's going to start becoming a habit. And so you'll get into these good habits by planning out all of that time. There's an importance to regularity and repetition. Again, when we have a regular schedule, when we're repeating the same thing every week, some people really enjoy that. Excuse me, like me, I really enjoy repetition. My weeks tend to look very, very similar. So I answer emails at the same time. I have a set block of time that I grade papers every week. All looks very similar. I really like that. Some people do not like repetition as much, and so they need to kind of mix things up a little, which is fine, but just really finding what works for you. But when you do have that, you develop good habits over time. It also helps with focusing on the task at hand and helps us make decisions rationally and based on priority, not on what we feel like doing. So a lot of times, and you can let me know in the chat box if you feel this way too, a lot of times if you don't have a plan on how you're going to spend the day, you just do the things that you want to do, the things that are easiest to do, or the things that you feel like doing. And that history paper that's due next Wednesday that you're really not interested in is going to fall by the wayside. So that's why it's important to have to-do lists and to have a goal for each day, because otherwise sometimes we just get in the situation where we end up just doing whatever we feel like and not what really needed to be done that day. Also, with making decisions, if you have your schedule planned out, it's going to make you have an easier time making decisions instead of feeling stressed and making a decision in a split second. For time management, again, I told you we were going to talk about sleep. So managing your sleep. So there's a lot of research on sleep patterns and how we feel when we're tired and what that does to our productivity. We sleep in cycles, which are about 90 minutes long. The cycle starts at high brain activity, then drops to low, then returns to high. We want to ideally wake up at the top or end of our cycle, not the bottom or the middle of our cycle. That will lead to things like being groggy or being irritable. When we're tired, we also have those instances. And then sometimes we like to fix that with caffeine. So if you're really tired and you haven't slept very long, then you fix it with caffeine. And what happens when you drink too much caffeine for some of us? You get all jittery, and that's going to be distracting as well. So definitely, I had that memory of like in middle school where I didn't sleep very much and I chugged a rock star and then decided to go to class. And that was not the most fun experience. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough sleep. Sleep is really important. It's going to help you focus better if you're well rested. You're going to be in a better mood if you're well rested. You're going to be able to retain things better because you're not going to be so tired. And you're also not going to need like a venti, like double shot coffee to wake you up. So all good things. So sleep is really important. Again, about 7 to 8 hours a night is going to be ideal because again, it's going to have all those good benefits if we really have a manage on our sleep. So that leads me to my next question. How much does everybody sleep a night? So go ahead and put in the chat how much you sleep a night. You can be honest with me. Oh, I see some 7 to 8 hours or 6 hours. Okay. So it looks like everybody is sleeping at least 6. I don't see any 2 or 3 hours, which is not the case in when I've done this workshop previously. So I'm glad everybody seems to be getting at least 6 hours. That's good. 6 hours is good. Again, like somewhere between 7, 8 is really going to be what we're looking for, but 6 hours is still really good. That's a good chunk of time. With sleep too, it's important what your normal bedtime and wake up routine look like as well. You can go ahead and raise your hand or do the little thumbs up button. Who's on their phone right until they fall asleep? You can use the thumbs up button if you want, or you can just give me a thumbs up if you have your camera on. But who's on their phone right until they fall asleep? So some people I see. So with being on your phone right until you fall asleep, the light that comes from our phones or from the tablet or from television actually affects our sleep throughout the night as well. So there's been some research on this. With iPhones, there is like a night mode that you can turn on, and the same thing with like the MacBooks. I'm not sure about Samsung's or any of the non-iPhones if they have a sleep mode similar to that, but I think they do. But they have night modes, which are supposed to decrease the light, which helps us sleep better. But there's still research that says that an hour before we go to sleep, we should not be on any electronics. That's supposed to help us sleep better. If we aren't, on our phones, we aren't on our tablets or our computers, it's supposed to help us have a more restful sleep. Also, things like drinking caffeine. There are people like my father who can drink coffee all the way up till 8 or 9 p.m. and sleep perfectly fine. And there are other people like me who have a coffee at 2 or 3 p.m. and then stay up all night. So really depending on what, your caffeine, what it feels like when you drink caffeine, try and also not to have anything caffeinated before you go to sleep. So if you're really sensitive to caffeine, that will also keep you awake as well. In the morning, there is some research that says that you don't want to be on your phone, 5 minutes after you wake up. Instead, get up, stretch, drink a glass of water, all those good things, start to move around. So just kind of paying attention to what your bedtime routine and your wake up routine is as well will also kind of help with your sleep too. It may help you get a more restful sleep if you find that you're drinking caffeine until 9 p.m. and you don't feel as rested in the morning. Maybe trying to drink caffeine, stop at, let's say, 2 p.m. and then seeing how you feel the next day. So this kind of goes in with time management just because sleep makes us more aware and makes us focus on tasks better. When we're tired, we tend to get more distracted. So there's two types of people. There's either larks or owls. So larks are early risers. They're energized and alert in the morning. They get more accomplished early in the day. They're wary at the end of the day, and they prefer going to bed by 11 p.m. and rising before 8 a.m. Owls are late risers. Their energy level builds slowly throughout the day. They're more productive at the end of the day, and they prefer staying up late and sleeping in. So in the chat box, let me know if you're a lark, an owl, or maybe a little bit of a mixture of both. There's a lot of different answers. We see a lot of owls, a lot of boths. I am an owl who wishes that she was a lark at all times. And lately that has been proven is that I am definitely an owl, but I wish that I was a lark. So with larks and owls, it's important because this can help inform how you get things done. So if I'm an owl, getting up at 6 a.m. and trying to get things done before 9 doesn't really sound like a great idea because I'm not going to be as productive. Instead, if I start doing things at, let's say, 3 or 4 p.m., I'm going to be much more productive. I'm going to be awake at that point. I'm going to be really focused. So that's really important. Things too, like right now, I know that we're virtual, so a lot of people have asynchronous courses, but in cases where you have synchronous courses or when hopefully we finally go back to school, if you're a lark, a 7 p.m. course, if you're already tired at that time, isn't going to necessarily be the best because you're already tired. You want to go to bed around 11. You're not going to be as committed to the material, not going to be as wanting to pay attention. Same thing with owls. If you're an owl and you're a late riser and you've already stayed up till 2 a.m., having an 8 a.m. class the next day may not be the best decision. Now, sometimes we have no choice over this. This is the only class available and we have to take it. But as much choice as we do have available, try to stick away from those times. If you're a lark, it's probably better to take classes in the morning if that's possible. For an owl, it's better to take classes in the afternoon if that's possible. So time management, again, importance of a regular pattern of sleep, ideally 7 to 8 hours, like I've been saying. Sleeping from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Again, if you're a lark, if you're an owl, that can be adjusted, but still with the 7 to 8 hours. What's really important is not changing on the weekend. So making sure on the weekend you're still following that pattern and not, sleeping in until noon or 1 p.m. on a weekend. Sometimes we need to do that if we need to catch up on sleep, but it's better to keep with that routine. If you're sick though, of course, by all means, sleep more. So when you're sick, you definitely need to sleep more. Sleeping with an alarm far away so you can't just press snooze. So I will say I am the worst at pressing snooze, and I definitely was in college. So now what I have found is I put my phone on the complete opposite side of the room. So I have to get up and walk over to it. If you're just like me and bad at the snooze button, there's also alarm clocks that will run away from you until you go press them. So that's also another option as well. So there are lots of different ways. There's also ones where you have to sit on a mat for a minute and then it goes off, or you can download on your phone an app that makes you do math equations. And until you get 5 correct, then it turns off. Yes, it runs away. So it's on 2 little wheels. And as soon as the time goes off, it activates and then literally just kind of rolls away from you. And then you have to go get it. This does exist. You can find them, I think, on Amazon. So there's lots of different ways if you hit the snooze button a lot to kind of get around that. A really simple one is just like I said, the app that you can download. You pick your math difficulty and then how many questions you want to answer, and your alarm doesn't go off until you've answered all of those questions correctly. And I do know this from personal experience because I did download it at one point. So yeah, so there are lots of different ways to get you up in the morning. If you end up staying late, just try to wake up at the regular time, or maybe like 1 or 2 hours later. But like, for instance, if you stay up, let's say you normally go to bed at 11 and wake up at, let's say 7 on the weekends, if you wake up at, or if you go to bed at like, let's say 1 a.m., try to still get up around like 7 to 9 and not sleep until like 1 or 2, because that's really going to affect your sleep schedule, and it will affect your sleep schedule for the next few days. So with time management, so we are going to start with a blank schedule. So I have a blank schedule over here as an example, but this is something that you can all do. So with time management, you want to start with a blank schedule, a blank piece of paper, and then block out all your time. So block out your sleep schedules, block out your meals, including time prepping your meal. Block out work if you're still working, block out class time if you're meeting over Zoom, block out study times, exercise 2 to 3 days a week, because that's what the recommendation is. And then also block out time for self-care. So when I look at this time management weekly schedule, I shouldn't have every single box filled in. That's a lot on your plate. Self-care is really, really important. You need time to give yourself self-care. So that looks different for everybody. So for some people, it's, you know, relaxing and sitting outside. For some people, it's reading a book. For some people, it's catching up on Instagram. For some people, it's watching a Netflix show. So whatever that looks like to you, give yourself time and space for that, because it's important and it helps decrease your stress and anxiety or whatever kind of things that you're feeling. It helps you be more relaxed. So make sure that you're putting that in. Again, like I mentioned before, we only have 24 hours a day. That's all we have. We don't get any more. And again, 7 to 8 hours should be spent on sleep. So you really want to figure out what you're spending time on, how long you're spending time on, whether or not anything can, you know, be decreased in time spent on it, or if you're just not committed to something as much as you previously thought. All of those things are really important to look at, and a weekly schedule really helps. So again, putting in all of these things: sleeps, meals, work, if you're still working, class time, study times, exercising, and then other things too. If you walk your dog every week, you know, you can put that in and exercise on top of it, or maybe that counts as your exercise. If you decide that you want to go, you know, have like socially distanced coffee with your friend, or if you want to go on a walk with your friend or go somewhere, put that on your schedule too. And then you can see how much of your time you're actually using and decide too, like, am I studying enough? Am I studying too much? Again, what I mentioned is we should study for about 45 minutes and then take about a 15 to 20-minute break. And if you're studying at your material and nothing is you know, getting absorbed, like you're rereading the same page 4 or 5 times over, stop studying and either go to a new subject or go do something else for 15 minutes and come back. That's one of the times where we're not using our time effectively. We're studying at a page for 5, you know, and looking it over multiple times. If you're absorbing the information and you need to look it over multiple times, then that's fine. But if you're looking over it multiple times and you're either getting lost, or you're not really understanding, or you're just not as committed or engaged with the material, take a break and come back later and try to do it again. Sometimes we just need a break from the material and we'll come back to it later. So again, 45 minutes worth of studying, take a break, come back. So everyone can, I'm gonna, like I said, we'll post this PowerPoint so you can use this weekly schedule to like fill out. You can also use, like I mentioned, Google Calendar. Outlook has a calendar. There are different things like OneNote, which you all have Office through your email, or you can use Evernote is one of those online. For iPhones, there is the Notes, or there's also to-do lists. There's an app for that. So whatever way works best for you. I typically just use a like pad with paper. But if you want to use the computer, then that's fine too. So just finding out whatever way works best for you. So time management when it comes to assignments. So planning ahead on assignments. So using a monthly calendar or planner, you want to write the due date of your assignment, set mini deadlines leading up to the final due date, and lots of online templates to use. Like I mentioned, Google Calendar, Outlook, Evernote, OneNote, all of those are good things to use. So you want to make sure that you're getting all your assignments in on time. So you want to make sure that you have kind of a calendar for yourself. And if it's a big project or a big paper, setting those mini deadlines could really help. So if you have a paper due, it's due in 3 weeks, maybe on the Tuesday, I'm going to just write out a outline of what my paper is going to look like. And then by the following week, I'll start to write all the paragraphs. I'll finish that. The third week, I'll proofread it and make corrections, and then I'll finally turn it in. So when we break it up into little parts, they're easier kind of to process and get through. Using the weekend to review previous week and plan for the week ahead. So Sundays, at least for me, are really big in planning on the week ahead. So on Sundays, I plan what I need to get done for classes. On Sundays, I record my lecture videos for my classes. I also, kind of look at my modules on Canvas and see if I need to make any changes. And I also make my announcements for the week as well. So those are all the things that I do on Sunday, and that's to get ready for the week and to kind of see what I have to do that week and plan out my time. So, you can use Saturday or Sunday, but that's a really good way to get a jump start on the week and to plan out your week to see what you really have to get done, what can kind of wait until next week, and then anything else kind of in between. So that's a really good way to use your weekends. You can also review your work on weekends too. With virtual learning, some people may have assignments due Friday, some people may have them due Saturday, Sunday, or at various times during the week. So with school, just kind of whatever makes sense. So if reviewing all your work on Sunday for the upcoming week makes sense, then do that. A lot of this with time management might be a trial and error to see what works better for you. So for me, I tried to use like Google Calendar for a long time, and it just doesn't work as well as pen and paper. So pen and paper works much better for me. So it really is about finding out what works the best for you, what skills are the best to implement for you. And again, this is kind of this introduction to time management. And this is a skill that takes a little bit of time to develop. So, and along the way, just kind of checking in with yourself of, did I spend enough time on this particular task? Should I have spent more? Should I have spent less? And kind of going from there. So always constantly, like on the weekends, reviewing your week, how it went, and then any changes that you want to make. So with that, that's the end of kind of the time management college success workshop. So now is the time, if you have any questions, you can either come off mute or write in the chat box. I'll also put my email again, if anybody wants to email me for any of like the resource links that I put up. This is my email right here. But does anybody have any questions on anything? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So oftentimes I'll write out a schedule for the day and I'll have a list of 5 to 10 things to do, but then come those 3 urgent situations that I have to stop what I'm doing and get those done and then regroup and refocus. Like how do you do that?
Yeah. So these situations pop up that are not on your to-do list from the day start. Okay. So with that, typically, and sometimes this also is kind of a go with the flow situation as well. So sometimes if I have that scenario where I've already kind of planned out my day and these things suddenly come to me that I had not planned for, what I do is I get those things done because they're the most urgent things. And then I go back to my to-do list and I reassess myself. So I say, okay, those are done. Yes, that I did not plan for that, but now we're kind of moving on and going to this next part. So I look at my to-do list and I think, what do I need to get done today? What can wait till tomorrow or tomorrow morning? And how do I kind of fit this into the rest of my day? So sometimes that may mean that I cut in a little bit more than I normally plan on working. So sometimes I really kind of hope to work at the latest 6:30 on most nights, 7 p.m. But maybe that means that night, since I had a few more things to do and I wasn't planning beforehand for those unexpected things, maybe then instead I work till 7:30 or 8 o'clock that night just to fit those things in. But that's also, do they have to be done tonight? Can they wait till tomorrow morning? So those are some big questions to ask yourself. And as far as regrouping, I sometimes just take a minute or two just to breathe and say, okay, I did that. That's now done. Let me move on to this next section. So you can also use breathing techniques, or there's lots of meditations online and on Spotify and Apple that you can also use to kind of rebalance yourself and then move back into your previous to-do list.
And I have one more question, please. How to delegate better? Do you have any suggestions on delegating? Because I'm the type of person I like to do it all, because I tend to think it'll just get done quicker and the right way the first time, but learning to let go and delegate to my team. Any suggestions on doing that?
Yeah, so delegating is one of those things where I completely understand the need to you want to do it yourself, you want to make sure that it's done this way. But over a time, having kind of that process of I can delegate this to another person and it's going to be okay, is kind of telling yourself that of I need to delegate this. It's going to be fine. This is going to take less stress off of me if I move it over to this other person and they are capable of getting it done, which is something that's really hard and takes time to kind of be okay with that. But delegation is just one of those things where you have to delegate the task and you just have to trust that it's going to be okay and that it's going to get done.
Makes sense. And it seems like in the long run, once you learn to delegate, you could delegate more, which makes, give you more time to do and address other tasks.
Yeah, delegation gets easier every time you do it, because that first time you are trying to I really want to control this, but the more times you delegate, the easier it does get.
That's the word, control. I need to let that go.
It's hard for everybody. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Noha then.
Okay, thank you so much, Noelle. We appreciate